Hi, welcome to this calming practice. It's called Walk the Road. That is a phrase from a Baisaō poem, and I will share a part of that poem with you during final relaxation. The theme is walking the road. Afterwards, what can we do to, after a hike or walking for the feet, lower legs, outer legs, back of the legs. These are all poses that I do after my own walks or hikes. So they feel really good post-ambulating. For today, please have a strap and a block at the ready. And also, we will be practicing a relaxed lunge with a quad stretch. The back knee is going to be on the ground. And if the mat is not enough padding for your knees, feel free. I have a blanket or pillow will work well for that. In addition, we'll be doing squat variations. You can always sit on a block for squat. You can also sit on a chair or a sofa for everything we're doing in squat today. So just keep that in mind as we get to that. But let's start. Please, let's lie on the back. And you're going to lie face up with your feet planted on the floor so your knees are bent. And your arms are out in wingspan, so they're by your sides. Out to the sides. And as you inhale, you're going to arch your back, breathe into your belly. And then as you exhale, press your low back into the floor and draw your navel in. And go back and forth like this a few times to start tapping into spinal movement. Tap into your breath, breathing in and out of your nose. Of course, if you're stuffed, breathe in and out through your mouth. But in and out through nose if possible, and into abdomen on spinal extension. And then as you exhale, you can draw your navel and add some spinal flexion. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing with our low back. We're going to add some arm work. And as you inhale, you're going to externally rotate both arms. So that's drawing the shoulder blades away from your ears, like you're trying to palm the floor the harder way. And then as you exhale, rotate the arms opposite. Palm the floor the easy way and keep rotating. So some of you might be able to lift your pinky finger up on the end of that exhale. Go back and forth like this. Inhale with external rotation, arch your back. Exhale, internal rotation, draw your navel into the floor. Go back and forth like this a few times. So we're warming up shoulders, we're warming up low back. And finally, some ankle work as you inhale, also rock onto your heels. So that means you're going to lift your toes up. And as you exhale, press your toes into the floor and lift your heels as high as you can. And go back and forth like this several times. So the inhale stretches out the bottom of the calves and the top of the hamstrings. Exhale engages hamstrings and calves. And go back and forth like this. Yeah, and notice if one ankle feels a little bit tighter than the other. As you go back and forth like this another few times, breathing in the belly, warming up shoulders, low back, and ankles. Okay. Great. And then from there, pause in the middle. You can relax your hands by your sides. Take a deep breath in. Big exhale. Okay. And then from here, you take the soles of your feet together and you drop your knees out to the sides. So we're in a Supta Baddha Konasana. The soles of your feet are together, and you're going to keep your toes on the floor as you lift your heels. And then you exhale, you lower your heels down. Now try your best to keep your heels down as you lift the front of your feet, so your toes point up. And as you exhale, relax. So it's like a two-part breath. Part one, inhale, you lift your heels. Exhale, you return your feet to the floor. Part two, inhale, lift your toes. Exhale, you lower to the floor. And go back and forth like this another few times. So this is a really great way to wring out the shins. This is called tibial rotation. And you might notice that one move feels a little more difficult than the other one. I mean, for me, it's lifting the toes. Feels kind of like less intuitive, but it's a good wringing out of our lower legs. Really getting some movement, some fluid body movement, some blood and some lymph around shins and feet. Another couple breaths here. Okay, great. And then from there, release, feet flat on the floor again, and you can lift your feet up in the air. Your hips can be on the ground if you'd like, and this is kind of what I prefer because it's easier to keep my legs up, is to take a block underneath hips and take your legs up as such. So this, in general, if you're upright all day, which most of us are, this is a great way to, this is a really yin inversion. So this is almost good almost any time of the day for any reason, but especially post-walk or hike, it's nice to get the feet up in the air and then to move them around to encourage the draining of the blood and the lymph from the feet. So our feet are up in the air, and we're going to do 4 movements. The first one being toe extension and flexion. As you inhale, open your toes as wide as you can. As you exhale, make a fist with your feet so you can squeeze the plantar fascia and go back and forth like this on your breathing rhythm. So inhale as you open your toes. Exhale as you squeeze the soles of your feet. And go back and forth like this another few times. All right, and that's the toe movement. From there, relax your toes, and as you inhale, press your heels up as high as you can, and exhale, point the tops of your feet up. So this ankle movement, this is probably fairly familiar for most feet. But really work on the range. So it's less about the speed of the repetitions, and it's more about maxing out the range, whatever range you have in your ankles. Try to further that here. So a couple more plantar and dorsiflexions. And then press your heels up. The heels are going to stay pressing up gently, and this next move is called inversion and eversion. Inversion is where you turn the soles of your feet inward, and eversion is where you turn the soles of your feet outward. Your legs might move a little bit, but this work is happening at the ankles. And you can tell it's happening at the ankles if your knees don't really change position. So you can look at your kneecaps, and if your knees are moving out and in, that's hip work. If you can keep your knees relatively still, now most of the work's coming from your ankles, and going back and forth like this another few times here. All right, very good. And then now you're going to bring your legs together, feet together if you can, and also ankle work. We're going to make the biggest circles that we can. And once again, this is it's not the legs moving around. It's actually like spinal work. It's like abdominal work. Instead, the legs are more or less still, and the ankles are doing the work. So this is a lot of the muscles in the shins. We've been going around in circles one direction. Change the direction. Okay. Very nice. And then place your feet on the floor. You might notice some blood and sensation go back into your feet. That always feels like a nice kind of wave of fluid back down the legs. Right knee into the chest then, and extend your left leg forward. So you're going to press the heel forward, right knee into chest, heel drives along the floor, and breathe into your lower abs. And as your left heel presses forward, open your toes so the sole of your foot is kind of bright, open, wide and long. One last breath here. Take a big inhale. And then exhale, switch legs. So now I'm hugging my left knee in. Press the right heel as far forward as you can. As you hug your knee in, press the heel forward, open your right toes. So it's almost like blossoming, the sole of the foot blossoms open. Another 2 or 3 breaths into abdomen. Okay, great. And then release, feet onto the floor. You can get the block out of the way, lower your hips down. I'm going to change direction, you don't have to. But you're going to find your strap, and we're going to take the loop around your right foot, right leg up in the air. And we're going to hold the strap like we would hold reins of a horse. So this is so we can facilitate the ankle, the in version and the E version. So oftentimes I will use a loop around the foot if we're keeping the ankle stable. That helps stabilize the ankle. We're actually trying to work on the flexibility of the ankle. So we're going to hold the foot up in the air with hands on either side of the strap. So you press the heel up, and then so the right foot's up in the air. To get inversion, you pull on the left side of the strap and you turn the sole of the foot inward. And then you pull on the right side of the strap, turn the sole of the foot outward. So the forefoot movements really focused our attention on the feet. And now in this pose, Supta Pada 1, we're incorporating foot movements and experiences into the leg. So you press the heel high the whole time, and you turn the sole of the foot inward, you turn the sole of the foot outward. You might feel the repercussions of that movement, not only in the shin, but it might even be in, like behind the knee and in the back of the thigh. Okay, so leg as straight as you can make it. First big hamstring stretch of the day, first big calf stretch of the day. And then from here, you're going to turn the sole of the foot inward. So that's inversion. You're going to keep it there. So now your outer heel is lifting as high as you can. And from here, the whole leg is going to go over to the left a couple inches. Do that while keeping your right hip anchored into the floor solidly. And here's our first major lateral line stretch. So the outside of your right leg, not only outer ankle, outer shin, but IT band is going to get a stretch. And as you press the heel up, keep your right hip down. If this is very intense, also make sure your jaw is relaxed, your face feels heavy. As you release tension in your legs, just make sure it doesn't settle higher up in the body. And there's 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale, and one last time. Okay, and then you can neutralize your ankle and release your foot. Before we do the second side, allow both legs to relax. Notice the difference between sides. My hope is not only does the right leg feel a little bit more malleable, but that translates into a little bit more freedom in the low back. All right, and then let's try this on the other side, please. Left leg up in the air. Again, you're going to take it, instead of a loop, you're going to hold the strap like you would hold reins of a horse. Right heel is pressing forward, left heel is pressing up toward the ceiling. So you're going to draw the right side of the strap towards you to turn the sole of the foot inward. And then you're going to draw the sole of the foot outward by drawing the left side of the strap toward you. So go back and forth like this, and do it slow enough so you can feel the implications of this move down your leg. It might be fairly local. Maybe it's just that the calf feels like it's getting changes, the outside of the leg stretches and releases alternately. But some of you might feel that it kind of changes how your like your hamstrings feel. Okay, so go back and forth like that, and from inversion to eversion a few more times. Okay, and then we're going to pause with the sole of the foot turned inward. So that's inversion. Now your outer heel is lifting up toward the ceiling. Keep your leg straight. It's very prone to bend as you take the leg to the right a little. Okay, especially if you're tight, the leg's going to want to bend. That basically just like severs the connection all the way down the outside of the leg. So if it's too intense, just take your whole leg forward, but see if you can keep it straight. Does not have to be straight up. So the sole of the foot's pointing inward, heels pressing up, keep your left hip down. And here we have the outer ankle, the fibularis group, muscle group along the outer shin, IT band, perhaps outer hip. If this is a rather substantial stretch, relax your face, soften your eyes, soften your jaw. Breathe, a very mindful breath in and out of belly. And let the pose work on you another few times. Okay, very good. And then you can neutralize your foot, release your left leg, and place the strap by your side, extend both legs forward. Notice the after effects of that substantial hold. All right, great. And then from here, you're gonna cross your legs and see if you can hold the outsides of your feet. We're gonna draw this in, so it's like an upward facing Sukhasana. Ultimately, if this doesn't work, you can always come up to seated and take the cross-legged forward fold from a seated position. But especially post-walk or hike, it's nice to get out of gravity, like standing up. So to be supine, I'm a fan of that. Whether you're seated or on your back though, if you can hold the sole of your feet with your hands, you can press your feet into your hands into your feet. That activates your legs a little more, and then you can draw the whole thing in as tightly as you'd like. I'm looking for a stretch around thighs, hips, and low back. Make sure your knees are okay with this. Breathe into your low back. So if you're on the back, you're hugging your shins in. If you're seated, you can still press hands into feet and fold like this. So 2 more breaths here, and then we'll change the lacing of our legs. Deep breath in, big exhale. Take a deep breath in. Okay, so one shin's on top, switch it up. Hold your feet, press your feet into hands, hands into feet, and draw your shins in. Okay, and if the other shin's on top, this array might feel a little bit different. That's fine. Press hands into feet, press feet into hands. Draw your shins toward the heart center. Or if you're seated, you can fold your spine as much as you'd like. And there's 2 or 3 breaths here into low back. Okay, very good. And then release that. If you're seated, you can lie on the back again and either A, hug your knees into your chest as such. This is Vayamuktasana. If you're hugging your knees in, the advantage there is you can move your ankles around and your toes, and you can really kind of just like playfully move them around, like you're celebrating the feet. If you like to take happy baby pose, there's sort of less opportunity to like move the toes around, but this can give you a bigger hamstring stretch, calf stretch. So it's kind of like whatever you need for yourself. So would you want to focus on the feet moving around, or would you want to focus on some hamstring and low back release? You can also just switch in between the two. We have another 30 seconds here. If you are in happy baby pose and would like additional hamstring stretch, take your toes another ½ inch back in the direction of your head, like behind you. All right, great. Take a deep breath in. Okay, and release. From here, let's come up to hands and knees. And we're gonna take toes curled under. So this is it's like a perennial stretch. It's like I do it every time I hike or run. And you're going to curl the toes under and add as much or as little weight as you'd like on the toes. So this stretches out the soles of your feet. And this is kind of option number 1, where I'm not all the way back. I'm listening to my knees, and my toes are okay. I press my toes down to the floor. Okay. If it feels okay, you can always sit up, add more weight into the toes. Just keep on driving your toes down. But no need. If this feels like there's plenty of work, you press the toes down. Perhaps the last toe or the last 2 toes aren't quite on the floor. If they're dangling, that's fine. But you press the toes down, another couple breaths here. Very nice. And then you come forward. Again, wiggle your toes around. Move your ankles around. And then you can curl your toes under and lift back into downward facing dog. So your thighs are lifting. Lift your thighs up toward the ceiling. Press your heels back. And if you are a bit restricted on the back body, if the heels are up, that's fine. Just keep on lifting your thighs and you press your heels back. If you're more flexible and your heels are on the ground and it's not that big of a deal, I invite you to challenge your ankles by keeping your heels down as you bend your knees a little. And so I can do that about like 3 or 4 degrees. I'm not even sure if you can see that, but here are my legs straight. I'm gonna keep my heels planted. I'm gonna bend my knees. And all of a sudden, I'm really using the front of my shins to stretch my Achilles tendon. So there's 2 more breaths here. So this isn't a case where we're bending the knees and keeping your heels down. Actually gives you more stretch around your ankles. So 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale, and one last time. All right, and from here, you can bend your knees. We're gonna come up to standing, do a couple standing postures. Find your block, and the next pose, back of the legs again, is gonna be pyramid. The right foot is forward, left toes are pointed out to the side. Just make sure the stance feels like you're in balance. And you're gonna bend your front knee, and then slide your right hip back, left hand to block to floor. Okay, so now we're in pyramid pose over our right foot. You're gonna fold toward the floor. For those with 2 blocks, you can also have a block on either side here, but I'm just demonstrating with 1 block, and this feels okay for me. So from here, you're folding. You can get more of a stretch in your low back by rounding your spine, but the focus can be on the foot here. You're gonna slide your right hip back, and in order to stretch out the sole of the foot, I invite you to press your heel into the floor and lift the front of your foot up high. Spread your toes, which spreads the plantar fascia, and then try to lay down your big toe mound another millimeter further forward. So now the sole of the foot's longer. You might get more of a stretch through foot and ankle that way. At least I do. So once again, after lifting the front of the foot, you spread the plantar fascia, and then you lay your toe mounds down again. Press big toe, little toe mound down into the floor. And we're pausing here another 30 seconds. So it's a fairly long hold for a fairly dense set of muscles. So calves and hamstrings, we're trying to incorporate some footwork in here as well. So 2 more breaths. Take a big inhale, big exhale, and one last time. Okay, feel free to bend your front knee a little bit, drive your front foot into the floor to come up, and we can step up and switch sides. So left foot's forward, you bend your front knee a little bit, right hand to block to floor. Okay, and we're here, get it all set up, so it's counterclockwise rotation of hips, and you're forward folding over your front leg. If you'd like to round your spine, you could. That's more stretching your low back and the back of your spine. Okay, now I'm going to turn around for demonstration purposes. So you can either stay here, or I invite you to drive your left heel into the floor. And you can even kind of visually mark where your big toe mound is. Lift your front foot and open the soles of your feet. Toes nice and wide, and then it's almost like like saltwater taffy machine, like stretching the sole of the foot further forward. Lay your big toe mound another millimeter further forward. We've now made the foot longer, which may mean there's more of a sense of stretch and length in the foot. Okay, that might have a very local effect in the foot. It might feel a little bit more global down the back of the leg. And like we did on the first side, I encourage you to try that one more time. You're going to lift your foot, spread the plantar fascia, and try to send the toe mounds forward and down. So yeah, footwork, ankle work. Let's pause here another few breaths. Okay, great. And then to come out of that, I usually bend the front knee a little bit so I can really drive the foot into the floor. Inhale, use your back body to come up. And you can step up to standing. Wide-legged forward fold is next. So I'm going to place the block by the side. Take your hands to the floor. So this is wide-legged forward fold. If it's okay for your knees, send your heels out a little wider than the toes. With internal rotation. For me, that gets the outside of the hamstrings a little more, and outer shins. And you're going to forward fold as much as you'd like. And to get a little more stretch out of the back of the legs, you're going to lift your heels, so come up onto your toes, bend your knees, and then from here, arch your back and lift your sitting bones up toward the sky. So as your sitting bones go up, drive your big toe mounds down. Of course, the little toe mounds are there too, but really drive the big toe mound down. All right, so sitting bones are up, and then from here, you're going to try to slide your heels back another millimeter as you replant the foot. So in pyramid, we kept the heel down and tried to lengthen the soles of our feet by bringing the toes further forward. In this one, we're keeping the toe mounds where they are, and we're trying to lengthen the sole of our feet by sending the heels further back. So we can do that one more time. If you're in balance, if it makes sense to you, you're going to come up onto tippy toes, lift your sitting bones up toward the ceiling, and then you keep your toenails down. It's like you're trying to stretch your calves further back so your feet land longer. And then from there, last 30 seconds, you can keep your hands where they are. If you'd like to bend elbows or move your hands into a different position, go ahead and do that. Really feel the foot fall into the floor, sitting bones lift up toward the ceiling, and breathe into your low back another few times here. Okay, great. And then from there, you can bend your knees, heel toe yourself a little closer together. All right, and come all the way up. Use your back body to arrive up. All right, the block is coming back in as an option. So option number one, we're all doing Uttanasana, which is a standing forward fold. And without a block, your hands can be on shins, or you can use a block for your hands like this. And forward fold, we're basically working on the back line, and that would include some lumbar spine, okay? So if using the block underneath the feet doesn't work for you, just stick with this type of forward fold, okay? And hands can be up higher, they can be lower, whatever you'd like to do, just stay here for a while. If you'd like, the block is gonna be under just one foot. And specifically, the heel's gonna be on the ground, the big toe mound's gonna be up on the block, okay? You're going to forward fold like this, so it might look like pyramid. Or if you're a little more flexible, you would come forward, try to line up the heels more, and turn it into an Uttanasana. Okay, so that's a lot of options all at once. So if it feels confusing, just try to get whatever works best for the back of your legs. But you could take a sort of hybrid between pyramid and Uttanasana here and focus on the one calf. If you are more flexible, you'll be able to bring the heels side by side and fold. Okay, so another 30 seconds here or so. Drive the heels down, press the toe mounds down, including the one up on the block, and then lift your inner thighs up toward the ceiling. Okay. And if you're not getting enough stretch, keep your heels down and shift your hips forward just a little bit. A little bit's gonna go a long way, and especially on the foot that's up on the block. All right, and there's 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale. One last time. Okay, great. And you can remove the block, come up to standing. And if you use the block on one side, feel free to shift it to the other side. Toe mounds up on the block. And once again, you can take some hybrid between pyramid and Uttanasana. Fold over your leg. If none of this is working, you go back down into Uttanasana with your feet side by side. And that way you can use the block for balance. Or if you are more flexible, the heels line them up. And now we're folding forward in Uttanasana, one foot up, so there's a big calf stretch. So if one side's tighter than the other, you might need to take a slightly different option. You don't have to worry about looking the exact same from side to side, especially on something like this. Just try to go for the same, less the same look and more the same feeling, more the same experience from side to side. All right, so heels press down, inner thighs lift, and if you'd like more stretch in that calf, you can slide your hips forward just a little. And that's sort of like the same effect that we did in downward facing dog. You really work a little bit, goes a long way. There's a little more ankle flexion there. Keep your legs nice and active. Feet press down, inner thighs lift. Yeah, just let the pose work on you. Allow the tension in the body to like exhale the tension, by which I mean relax your face. Another few breaths here. Okay, great. And then from there, you can come up to standing, all the way back up. All right, the back of the legs, we've really worked on them quite well. The next thing we're gonna do is come into squat. So this is where if you can do squat without props, fine. If you'd like to sit on the block, fine. If you'd like to sit on a chair, also fine. The idea is if the feet are wider, squat really works inner legs. To work on the calves a little, if you want to bring your feet closer together, now that means that the ankles have to flex more. If your heels are up off the floor, that winds up being a balance pose, and that's actually our balance challenge today. So if the heels are up, you're already in our balance challenge. I'd say take the feet a little wider. That means the ankles have to flex less. Okay? And if you're in the chair, sit on the edge of the chair. You can bring your feet as close together as you can and try to lean forward with your knees. So this is going to get that ankle flexion that I'm looking for. Okay? So you can either stay here, and it's like you're trying to press your knees forward. Bend your knees forward, because you can imagine going back in space is less ankle flexion. So your knees going forward in space is more ankle flexion. That's going to give you more calf stretch. All right, so if this feels like a good stretch for the next 30 seconds, have at it. If you're looking for a balance challenge and some strength in your ankles, and I have to kind of like reach my hands forward to get my weight forward into my toes. I press my toes down and then lift my heels up high, and then I lower my heels to the ground. And you do this several times. And so this is a good way to bring blood from the feet and legs up into thighs and hips. This is actually, I know probably not many people have flown this year, but on the back of on those little exercise sheets, this is something that you do on flights to keep the blood circulating in your legs. And you can do this while seating in a chair or on the block as well. Okay. Great. And then you lower, you come up into a forward fold. All right, pause there. My hope is that the legs, feet, ankles all feel pretty sparkly and rather fluid. Okay, great. And then from here, we're going to come to hands and knees. The next is a relaxed lunge. We're going to take a yin lunge with our right foot forward. So, and the right foot, it's not going to be as far as in other lunges because I'm looking to get that same type of ankle stretch here that we've been getting previously. So back foot, my toes are pointing back. You can keep your toes curled under. This is also where, because the back knee is on the floor, if it feels sensitive, if the mat's not enough cushion, use a pillow or a blanket for your back knee. The idea is the front foot's going to be back far enough so that it's a challenge to keep your heel down. Okay? So, and if your heel is up, that's actually not that bad of a thing. It's a little more stable with your ankle down. So if you do have ankles that are prone to injury, if you're very flexible, maybe keep the heel down. But if you'd like a bigger stretch than that even, some people like to relax with the heel up. So it's kind of like you're hanging off of ankle flexion. There's a few breaths here. Okay, great. And then you take hands to the floor, shift your hips back. Come to hands and knees. You can wiggle your ankles around, and I'm going to turn around for demonstration purposes. You don't have to. All right, and then from there, please take your left foot forward. Okay, the back foot, toes point back or toes curled under, whatever you would prefer. What works for you works for me. And then you're going to relax into your front ankle, your front foot. And if the foot was forward, the knee wouldn't be bent as much and the ankle would not be bent as much. Take your foot back if you can, and you can relax down into your foot. If the heel is on the ground, that's a bit more stable. So very flexible people actually that might be a boon to your ankle. Okay? If you're a little bit tighter, it might be interesting to hang off the ankle a little bit with your heel up. Not that you're activating it up, you're relaxed, but if the knee comes forward enough, everyone's heel is going to lift eventually. So yogi's choice, heel up or down. And we're relaxing into our leg like this. Another few breaths. Okay, and then hands plant. From there, shift your hips back. All right, come to hands and knees. Again, ankle movement. I'm gonna turn around for demonstration purposes here. So that lunge is option number 1. Option number 2, I'm gonna use a blanket for this. With my right foot forward, instead of relaxing down into the lunge, I'm actually gonna lift up into the lunge. And so this is option number 2, to lift up like this. Now this is going to give a stretch to the front of the hips. Okay? So my front leg is more active. I'm lifting up like this. Okay? That's option number 1 here, is to work on just that lift, that length through the front side of your left thigh and your left hip. If you have the balance, if your back knee is okay with this, if your back quad is okay with this, what you can do is reach back with your left hand, hold the foot, and draw the foot in a little bit. Okay, so this is a big quad stretch. Okay, so you see why I have the blanket down. So if any of this causes pain, go back to this option and you can lift. You can even relax down like that. Okay, but if it's available, bring your foot in. And there's another couple breaths here. Okay, great. And you can release, come back out of that. I'm going to take the block to the other side to prep for the other side. So option number 1 is to do what you did previously in the lunge. You kind of work on the front ankle. Option number 2 is to stay up here. You can lift your lungs. Hand can be on block. It's more of a balance challenge, but hands on front thigh. It's another way to go. And as you get a stretch through here, you can breathe into it. Option number 3 is you bend your right knee, reach back with your right hand, and you start to draw the knee. So you sort of draw the foot in toward the heel. So the back knee's on the ground and it's being bent. Take care of your joints. I'm looking for a stretch closer to the skin of the knee rather than in the knee joint. So make sure your joint feels okay, but the quad's getting a stretch. The patellar tendon might be getting a bit of a stretch. And depending on how you're holding your foot, even the top of the ankle might be getting a stretch. So do whatever is most intuitive, feels most productive. And there's another few breaths here. All right, great. And then you can release that foot. Come to hands and knees. Very nice. Wiggle your ankles around. And then you can point your toes back, set back toward your heels, and come into child's pose. So Balasana. With toes pointing back, ultimately if that doesn't work, you can keep your toes curled under. But we haven't done a lot of that, the toes pointing back. So take a couple breaths here in your lumbar spine and the space between your shoulders. Okay, great. And you can come up, still with the toes pointing back. You can take Virasana. Again, ultimately, if this doesn't work, you can take the toes curled under. But this is, after all the work we've done on the calves and the soles of the feet, stretching them out, this actually brings some slack in them and stretches the front side of your feet. Okay? If you need to stay forward, go ahead and stay there. If you're up, you can also interlace your fingers and press your palms up toward the ceiling. So breathe into the side ribs and the waist. Another couple breaths here. Okay, release your hands, come out of Virasana and around to seated. All right, so I'm going to mirror you for the next one. So this is my left leg, but you're gonna take your right shin in front of your left shin. Okay? And that's option number one. Option number two is Gomukhasana. That's where you take your thighs closer together. And so this is going toward Gomukhasana. At some point, some of you might like taking your right shin on top of the left, right knee stacks on top of the left. But anywhere between here and here is fine, okay? So I'll just take the other end of the variation here, okay? And from here, so the knees are if your knees are close to stacked, what we're gonna do is twist to the right. So you're gonna twist to the right, front elbow to thigh, and you're gonna roll your belly to the right. Now this is as much work as we've done in the legs. We have not done a ton with the spine. So it might actually almost feel incongruous, like your legs are not quite matched up with your spine yet, because we haven't done a lot of spinal work today, but I would like a twist. If you're crossing your legs like this, one hand can go out and you twist to the right like this, okay? So everyone can get a twist regardless of how they're seated, regardless of how they're seated. So breathe into this, you can breathe abdominally. Two or three more breaths here. Okay, great. And then inhale, make your way out of that and lean back. From here, left shin is in front of the right. This is Sukhasana. If you're on your way toward Gomukhasana, cow face posture, you take your shins closer together. Maybe your left leg hops on top of the right somehow, and you're here. Okay? So anywhere between those two work. And then everyone can also get a twist. So if you're in Gomukhasana, you twist to the left and your front elbow comes to the thigh, palms together, you can use your arms to twist this way. If you are seated more like Sukhasana or that elbow's not getting there, you can take your front hand forward, twist to the left, reach your back hand back. And again, your arms can facilitate the twist. And then you breathe into this. Deep inhales into abdomen, around kind of wherever you're feeling the twist. Some people might feel it in the ribs. This might be an organic experience, like you feel your organs ringing out. So a few more breaths here in this twist. Okay. Great, and then come up out of that, release, and you're gonna lie on your back. And we'll start with Supta Matsyendrasana, so you're gonna lie on your back, shift your hips to the right a little bit, and then draw your right knee into chest, extend your other leg forward, take your right knee over, your hip's gonna come along with for a twist. Now, as best you can, try to keep your right shoulder heavy and your right arm can go out to the side. Okay, so we're in a twist. Option number one is to stay here, enjoy this, relax into this. Like especially if you're here for some of the more yin postures, just let the pose work on you. If you'd like to be more active in the pose, you can bend your bottom knee, and either with a strap or with your right hand, you bridge the gap. So I'm able to hold my foot, but you can always use a strap. And as you're holding the foot, you press that heel out to the right. That gives you a stretch on the front side of your left hip as well. So the arms are doing some work, the legs are doing some work. We can all relax our abdomen, kind of let the weight of the legs and the activity of your legs and arms work on your torso. So there's another few breaths here. Okay, great. And then from there, you release. All right, come back to center, pause there, feel the after effects of that twist on legs and around the spine. Okay, great. And then same thing on the other side, you're gonna shift your hips to the left and draw your left knee into chest, right heel presses forward, and then you take your leg over. So the leg goes across, left arm reaches out to the left, and as best you can, left shoulder as heavy as you can make it. And if you want a more yin pose, a more relaxed pose, if you have been hiking all day, your legs are tired, pause here. If you'd like some extra stretch with some extra activity, you're gonna bend your bottom knee, and with your left hand, hold the foot. You can bridge the gap with a strap if you'd like. And then the foot that you're holding, press that heel to the left. Yeah, but whether this is more yin or a bit more yang, breathe into the twist, breathe into the stretches. And you let the pose work on your thighs, your hips, and your spine. And this could even work. This is even working on my left shoulder a little bit. So you can breathe into there too. All right, very nice. Take a deep breath in. And exhale, come out of that. Release sole of feet to the floor so you can center your hips. Pause there. All right, very nice. And so find your strap again. We're going to take Supta Padangusthasana 2. And at the beginning of this practice, we really worked on the outside leg, stretching the outside leg. Supta Pada 2 helps stretch the inside leg. So you're going to take the strap around your foot. This time I am going to use the loop. So loop around the foot so there's just one strand of your strap. You can hold it. And from here, so the heel's pressing up, and then you're going to take the right leg out to the right, left heel presses forward. Now I'm going to loop the strap underneath me so I can use my torso to hold the leg in part. So depending on how the geometry works for you, some of you may be just pressing the heel out, and that's what you're able to work with. If someone has more external rotation, what they can do is point their toes closer to the ground, and if you can get your toes on the floor, and I'm even lift my opposite hip to do that, if you can get your toes on the floor, you can get a calf stretch there, and then you press the heel out, I'm going to re-extend my other leg, and roll my belly opposite. So this is a variation of Supta 2 with a lot of external rotation in the legs. So it's almost like my thighs are pointing down, my hamstrings are pointing up. And this gets the sole of the foot. This also gets a muscle, at least for me, it gets a muscle called the tibialis posterior. It runs deep to the calf and the soleus and along the inside ankle. And it's the muscle that governs our arch. So we're stretching out the muscle that helps keep our arch together. Breathe in the lower abdomen. It's another 30 seconds here or so. Okay, great. And then from there, you can release your foot, bring the leg back in the center, pause in the center, notice the after effects. I'm going to turn around for demonstration purposes, you don't have to. And then please let's try Supta Pada 2 on the other side. Leg goes up in the air. And then from here you take it out to the side. Again, I thread the strap underneath me. And the archetypal move, like the foundational move, is just press the heel out, keep the leg rather neutral, so it's just abducted. You press the heel out. All right, right leg presses forward. Some of you, you might be able to, if you bend your right knee a little bit, you might be able to externally rotate the leg. And what that looks like is the toes are pointing more down, heels up. And you can press the heel out to the left. And then re-extend your right leg forward. Okay, so yeah, the heel's pressing out, some external rotation in the leg. All right, so yeah, that's like hip work. Plus, if you're able to do this, this is a little more of a stretch for tibialis posterior. Basically connects all the way up underneath the knee, runs directly behind the tibia, so that's where it gets its name, along the inside ankle, and then it kind of spreads out and grabs the whole arch. So when it engages, it pulls the whole arch together and up. And after a day of walking, that might need a bit of respite, some stretch. So yeah, that's option number 2, as long as it feels okay for all joints. Pause here, another 30 seconds or so. Okay, very good. Take a deep breath in. And exhale from there, release your leg. Both legs relax on the floor. Pause there a moment. Okay, and from here, please take a relaxed bridge. You can take it any height you'd like. I'm just going to demonstrate on medium. The medium height for the block. All right, so we've done a fair amount of big stretches in the legs. Hopefully it feels like after all that work, the legs feel like heavier, calmer, more settled. And you can stay here if you'd like. Take the feet a little wider and then drop your knees inward. So after that big external rotation of the last posture, this internal rotation helps to kind of reset the hips the other way. But if that does not feel good for knees, or you would just prefer another leg variation, go ahead and do that. So this is our second inversion of the practice and our last. My hope is it feels like with all the twisting work we've done, the guts have a chance to kind of release toward the lungs, giving lower abdominal space. Allowing gravity to work opposite the way it usually does. So gravity usually operates from head to feet. A couple of times today we're able to get gravity to work more from feet toward head. And there's another couple breaths here. Okay, and then you're going to bring your feet a little closer together. If they're wider apart, bring them closer together. Extend one leg forward, other leg forward, and as a full sort of body extension, as you press the heels forward, interlace your fingers, press your palms back. So now we're lengthening from feet to head, head to feet. So notice all the decompressing work that we've done. And then as you exhale, release. Feet onto the floor in order to lift your hips off the block out of the way, and then extend your legs forward and really let them soak into the ground for our final relaxation here. So if you need to put on layers or throw a blanket on top, go ahead. If lying on the floor, it feels like you can't quite relax on the floor, feel free to prop yourself up, or you can even move to a sofa or something. But make it so for yourself, you can really offer yourself relaxation. And so the name of this practice, Walk the Road, we have walked the road already. And now we can afford to come home, relax, drop down, settle in. Allow your body to breathe itself. And if you have your own final relaxation practice or meditation practice, go ahead and use it. Twice, I'd like to read a part of a Baisaō poem. Feel free to interact with it if you'd like. As you seek the way, visiting teachers throughout the land, you walk the road knowing your true home has been reached. As you seek the way, visiting teachers throughout the land, you walk the road knowing your true home has been reached. So if there are any obvious distractions, acknowledge them. If there are subtle distractions, if your mind keeps coming up with new things, acknowledge those. They can all be teachers. And then you come back home, over and over again. Okay. Very good. And from here, tap into your breathing and start taking some gently deeper inhales and exhales. Guide a breath down your shoulders into your arms as if you're breathing into your palms. Guide a breath through your legs as if you're breathing through ankles, through feet. Notice how they feel. And then inhale into your brain space and exhale down your face. All right, and then from here, please draw one knee into your chest. Give your knee a good hug. Sweep a breath across your low back. And then switch legs. Draw your other knee in. Sweep a breath across your low back. And then from here, both knees into your chest. Give them a good hug. Take a deep inhale. And then exhale from there, roll over to one side. Pause on your side, notice how that feels to move after a brief period of stillness. And then from there, make your way up to a comfortable seat. All right, great. Well, thank you so much for practicing with me today. Hopefully this was very instructional, fairly comprehensive if you are a hiker or a walker or just like to work on the legs to release tension. Hopefully that felt like a good practice for you. Thank you very much. Take care. Namaste.